Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I am once again in my old house doing a review. And today was a very, I guess, climactic day because I finally finished season 4 of American Horror Story. Wasn't looking forward to finishing it because I knew that it was going to be Jessica Lange's last episode until, I guess she's in a couple of episodes in season 8, possibly. I don't really know what extent she's in, but I do know she's in that. Other than that, this was like her final send-off, and it's very sad. I really felt like this season, it had its ups and downs. It's really hard because also it feels like another show where real life came into play, and I heard that she wanted this to be the last role because she thought that this character was so amazing and that she thought that it ended perfectly and it was the best story so far. And I will say, after having very mixed opinions about the first 3 seasons, season 2 is obviously the best. I mean, clearly. It just clearly felt like it was the most consistent until the end, where it fell flat and became trash. Seasons 1 and 3, though, were very up and down. And this season was very up and down as well. But I still managed to think that this is my favorite season of the show so far. That being said, it's tough to say whether... I don't know. I feel like, watching this, you could get a different vibe that it feels like if I were to get that role of Elsa, I would feel kind of insulted because I don't know, it just feels a little bit true to life, almost like, someone's a bully actor, like maybe who do they call a bully? I don't know. Just some actor who's known for being a hothead, and then they're like, hey, look, you're going to play this bully, hothead piece of shit, and you know what I mean? But at the same time, I really did love her character, so it just was kind of awkward as it got to the end, because I felt like it I don't know, there was stuff underneath the show that factored in, and it was kind of uncomfortable a little bit to watch. Other things, well, God, there's so much to talk about once again. Well, for starters, I love the theme. And I also heard that she came up with the theme for this season, which it is my favorite theme so far. Freak show, carnival, fair, that's the perfect place for horror because it's something, you don't really see freak shows anymore. Because, everyone would get offended and they'd say, there's no such thing as freaks. It's just a cool name, in my opinion. I don't even, it's something you don't see anymore. And it's something where you could imagine, it'd be cool to see a horror story take place there. And so I have very high hopes for the season and the aesthetic too. The 1950s aesthetic with the color, there's just so much color this season to contrast with Asylum. And I know you're saying, why Asylum? Because it ties in with Asylum. Asylum was very ugly. It was very gray. It was on purpose like that, to where in that Name Game episode when they did the little music video, all the color came back into the show, and so it was very purposefully dulled down. This season was over the top color, 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 color. And I love color. Like, I love anything that's colorful like this, where you can see the full color palette. You can see red, blue, yellow, green, pink, purple. Like, there are so many moments where you could just pause it and say, like, wow, this looks amazing. And that's exactly what I wanted from this season, going in with the freak show aesthetic. So I will say I am a bit biased towards this season, just due to the aesthetic. Like, for some reason, I'm a big fan of aesthetics. I'm a big fan of, like, I don't know, like, having different, stories. A lot of movies and shows, they're just told in this very boring, one-note way. And I really like it when movies and shows have, like, a unique aesthetic. Like, if you've ever seen the movie Heathers, that movie has a very unique aesthetic that's very just unique to Heathers and Heathers alone. Or, even like Friday the 13th. That movie has a particular aesthetic to where it was copied over and over again in lesser ways by lesser movies. So, I love the aesthetic of the season. I don't think there's anything wrong with the season in terms of visuals, except for, and now I know I'm going to weird people out because I never talk about, like,
I don't like this shot because it wasn't technically right. It wasn't in frame. And so
I heard this one douchebag, and he was talking about movies, and he's like,
I can't even watch a movie unless it's in frame. I can't even watch it. It's too hard for me.
And I'm not like that. But there were a couple of moments near the end of the show where they were kind of ruined for me because the shots were blurry. And they looked so blurry and grainy that it reminded me of the footage that I shot for my own movie on my iPhone. And I felt like, oh wow. Like it didn't look good, It looked like oatmeal spread across the screen. And there were like two shots like that. It was one in the episode 12 and one in episode 13. Other than that, like, the whole show is just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Like, I love, first you have this Halloween type of vibe, then it becomes Christmas. Of course, they don't really take advantage of that as much as they could have. But still, I loved, the decoration for this season, like, especially, and we will be talking a lot about this character, Dandy. Dandy's mansion, the Christmas decoration. It was so funny because, a lot of people have compared his character to Trump, which I would say, like, yeah, he really is like him, except he's likable and Trump isn't at all. But the Christmas decoration in the room was literally exactly like when Melania did the Christmas decorating for the White House. And so it was really hilarious how, like, even though he wasn't president until like a couple of years after this season, that they got the decorations so right. It was really funny. I was like, oh my god, like, this is weird. It's so surreal. And there were a couple of surreal moments about the show. And another thing that was surreal was in the finale. It was really weird because I've told you guys a lot about these experiences where I have a vision for a movie scene or a TV show type of story, and then later on I'll end up seeing it, and I'll end up seeing it and being like, oh wow, like, how was this possible? I didn't even know that this existed. Well, it happened again. I saw the scene where Elsa is in the waiting room of the agency. In fact, I wrote out the scene before I even saw it. And so it was very weird watching that scene because it felt like I was watching the scene on paper come to life. It was very strange. And so that was another surreal experience. But other than that, the show starts off, and I loved the first 4 episodes. Like, the first 4 episodes of this season, they all get an A+. Like, totally A++++. There's so much stuff to love. It felt like the show was going to easily be the best show of all of the seasons. And you had the Halloween vibe. You had great characters, too. I really liked the characters that they introduced. I love how Elsa, with her little devil bag, going around hiring people to be in the show, and how it all starts off with her getting the twins and getting them out of trouble. I was really into the show and the characters. But then in episode 4, and there's so much stuff to talk about that I don't even know if I'll get to all of it, so I'm trying to stay very generalized. Whereas with the Coven review, I was like, oh yeah, there was that, and that happened, and I like that, and I like that. It was very different review. Something happened in episode 4 where they killed off Twisty the Clown. And it was very disappointing. It felt like, it did feel perfect the way that it was done. But in terms of pacing, it felt like the most American Horror Story way for things to go. In a bad way. I've said this and I'll say it again. The seasons, the reason why the show is less popular now has nothing to do with it's gone on for a lot of time. It has to do with the story pacing, the way that every season almost has the same plot structure where, and I've graphed this, I have physically graphed on paper with the ratings and the episodes, the way that it follows the same trajectory, where it starts off really, really good, and then it dips, and then it goes back up, and then it dips again, and it dips even more to the final. The same thing. It was so, upsetting because I was like, oh, I don't even want to watch episode 5, because episode 4 felt like the season finale. Even though there were a lot of stories that were still on the horizon, I guess, they didn't really feel as interesting as the stories in the first 4 episodes with Twisty the Clown, and with the way that the police were after the freaks and the townspeople. The first 4 episodes should have been the whole show. I'll just say it like that, because after that, the show really goes downhill for a couple of episodes, 2 episodes, and they start to use a very lazy filmmaking technique, which is what if scenarios that are, dreams, hallucinations. So they had this pink cupcakes episode, which, God, those pink cupcakes look so delicious. I wonder if they were strawberry or they were just vanilla flavor with the pink coloring. I would have totally eaten one of the, both of those pink cupcakes and said fuck you to my twin, which, oh God. I wouldn't even want to be, I would not want to be a twin at all. Could you imagine it was very uncomfortable with Crybaby, seeing the way that, they had to, tilt their heads to the side, that they, because it's so awkward the way that you have these 2 heads on one body. It looked very awkward. And so it looked painful. It looked, that was another thing. But they started to do this technique where they showed scenes that could happen, and they make you think, oh, that's what happened. and then you find out they didn't. And so they show a scene of the twins dying, getting killed, and you know as an audience member, this isn't happening. This is just BS. And it was disappointing because it felt like the people who wrote the show, they knew that they wrote themselves into a corner with episode 4. You know, episode 4 was just perfection. The parts 3 and 4, Edward Mordrake parts 1 and 2, I mean, you know, those were just perfection, otherworldly good. You know, honestly, like, I will say the best moment in the whole series so far is probably Elsa Mars singing Gods and Monsters. I mean, that was just, it was perfect, utterly perfect. It was so beautiful with the green fog and Edward walking toward them, the storm in the background, the Halloween-y feel. It was probably one of the greatest scenes of television I've ever seen, and it might be the greatest, and it was fantastic. And then leading into that, where and this is another thing, Ethel, Kathy Bates, you know, a lot of people hate her character in this. I really liked her character for the most part. I thought that she was supposed to be the heart of the show. I didn't really know who the heart was though by the end, because they kept on making everyone the heart of the show. So then it kind of made no one the heart of the show. Because that's something else, is that over the course of the season, it turned from American horror story to American drama story. The way that, you know, there wasn't a lot of horror in this season, except for the first 4 episodes. You know, in terms of horror, in the second part of the season, they rely heavily on the character of Dandy Mott, and he is, I will say, he is the greatest character that American Horror Story has ever created. I mean, his performance was Emmy-worthy. It was masterful. He was so good because he had layers to his character. It wasn't just a one-dimensional, you know, like I said that he's like Trump. Well, you know, a lot of the times nowadays, they make characters on purpose who are like him so that they can rag on them and turn it into an agenda and say, look, this guy's a piece of shit, and so that they can have their little in-jokes about it and everything. But this character, he had layers. He wasn't just one-dimensional agenda character. You know, he was a very complex, awesome character. But unfortunately, his story came off as American Psycho Jr. Meets the Joker from DC. And so there were moments where he was exactly like American Psycho, running around in his underwear all the time, and, you know, the exercise routine thing. And then there were other moments. Probably one of his best moments was when he kills his mom. And that moment was very much like the Joker. And it was so good. You know, she's like, I just can't go on if I know that you're dead. Even though she was planning on killing him. And when you realize that, you realize that he took her gun from her purse. And he's just like, okay. And he just shoots her. And it's just like no hesitation, no remorse. And the red lighting on their faces and everything. Like, that was a top tier. And then he takes a bath in her blood, which was even more epic and more disturbing. And it was so cool, though, because his character, I got to admit, like, I have never identified with a character more on the show than Dandy Mott. And I know you're gonna probably be like running for the hills, but I mean like a specific layer to his character. Like it seems like he's going insane it seems like he has a lot of stuff that he wants to get out through acting and through performing, and it was frustrating how the freaks never saw him as a freak himself, and so there was never any sort of performance that he got to put on, and it felt like maybe if he just got to perform, then he would feel a lot better and everything. And so it felt very similar to when I had to be, when I had my work in making my first film interrupted for a whole year now. And so just waiting out that year-long period and having to try to find other things to do, it is a very similar feeling to the way that Dandy was feeling on the show. And, his little tantrums, I don't have tantrums like that, but, I could definitely, it was hilarious. I mean, those were some of the funniest things in the show, and it was so funny when he sees the costume and he's like, "Howdy doody!" Like, that was one of the greatest moments of TV I've ever seen. And I've never done that, obviously, I promise you. It's just, a little part of his character I did really empathize with, and so it was it was kind of weird. I didn't like empathizing with his character because I didn't, he was evil as hell. He killed lots of people, and then it gets to the end where the freaks are all really mean to him and they start physically assaulting him. And then he kills them all. And honestly, I was rooting for him. I mean, I wasn't rooting for him to kill all of them, but at the same time, I kind of was. Because by the end of the season, the freaks turned into real freaks. The way that they just turned on people and killed them at the drop of a hat. The way that they were just planning on, Elsa killed Ethel. We don't even know why. We don't even know how it happened. We don't even know the circumstances. We're just going to go and kill Elsa, the person who saved us. It really, I hated how ungrateful they were and how they were just willing to turn on Elsa at the drop of a hat. And so I gotta say, like, when Elsa escaped, and when she gave Dandy the show, and when Dandy gave her the money, I was cheering. I was, like, visibly, like, happy, because I was like, yeah, good job. Like, those pieces of shit, like, they're so ungrateful to Elsa. She was going to take them all to Hollywood with her. She was going to try to, give them whatever they wanted, and in return, they're going to kill her. Because they find out something where they don't even know the full story. They were getting very knife happy. They were getting very... They were just willing to kill anyone. To the point of where, you have Maggie, and we'll talk about all these characters in detail in the character ranking video that I will be doing for tomorrow. The character of Maggie, you knew that she was going to change. You knew that she was going to probably flip-flop, become a good person, help them out at the end. And she did. And then she gets killed by a shoehorned in character in Neil Patrick Harris, which, by the way, Neil Patrick Harris, here we have another example of you playing a straight person, which is really hilarious because he went on this whole rant and rave about how actors should be segregated again and how actors should be segregated into playing only what they are in real life for quote-unquote authenticity. But here you have Neil Patrick Harris, and he is playing a straight character who has sex with Crybaby. And I don't know if Crybaby is ever talked about, but I don't care. Crybaby's cool. Like, this season, that's another thing. This season redeemed Crybaby for me. Like, I really loved the Crybaby twins. I really wanted to see her having a Crybaby freak baby. as Dandy said of freak babies. That was pretty funny. You could just watch like the scenes with Dandy alone over and over and over again because they were so funny. And honestly, though, if you take Dandy out of this season, it fully becomes trash. And so that is a problem because other than Dandy, other than Twisty the Clown, what do you have? For the most part, they have a lot of relationship drama, a lot of romance crap. So they have this whole weird story where the seal boy, I can't remember his name, he was a very good actor. I thought he was really good, but his character was trash, just like a lot of the other characters. They had this thing where he's having an affair with Elsa, and Elsa's jealous that he's with the nurse who came over there for a gangbang for some reason, and she puts him on the knife wheel, and she purposefully throws a knife at his chest, and it was because she was jealous. And so they never really went anywhere with that storyline, and there were a lot of stories like that where they just kind of, it's frustrating because it feels a lot like the writers, they pick up and drop off stories at their convenience. Like the story with Del being gay, being a closeted gay person. It never was really necessary at all, other than just adding a layer to his character. And to be fair, I really liked Del's character. I felt like by the end, he was one of the most complex characters. He did some horrible, horrible things, but his dynamic with his son, the lobster boy, Jimmy, he had this really great father-son dynamic with him, and it was really sad when he got killed. That was one of the most shitty deaths. Obviously, when he killed Ma Petite, that was very upsetting as well. But I really wanted him to redeem himself and to stay alive, because it felt like, the freaks, they were dying off at the drop of a hat. Why risk killing any freak? Two wrongs don't make a right. And constantly in this season, they had this mentality of like, oh, that person did something wrong? Kill that person. Every single time. And it felt like it was very weird, because they made this whole thing about how Penny was an interesting character at first, kinda. Her dad deformed her and turned her into a lizard girl and forked her tongue. That was very upsetting to watch. And as revenge, they took the dad to the freak show, and they tarred and feathered him. And then Maggie came in, and she had this whole speech about how you shouldn't kill because you're proving the people right. You're proving them right that you're just these dangerous freaks, and that you really are. You're nothing like people in town. And what do you know? They didn't kill the dad. But then after that, it's like, oh, fuck that. Who cares about that whole character arc? Let's just start killing people at the drop of a hat because they did something wrong. So they just, it's really bizarre. Another bizarre thing, really, this whole season, one of the main issues, the main issue of this season is the message. Because by the end of the season, the message is freaks are just like anybody else. They're just like you and me. They're just like any normal people. And I agree with that. I'm not saying I disagree with that. But what I'm saying is that I already knew that before I started watching the season. I already knew that a person with, lobster hands like Jimmy, I know that he's exactly like me. I don't need to be told through 13 episodes that he's like me. I already knew that. I mean, it's very like, duh. It's very, very obvious. But that was the general message of the season. They had this big running thing about how, we can't go to the police. We can't go to the police. It was very similar to the New York City season. The way that they're like, we can't trust the police, can't trust the police. Which, they're probably right. But to be fair, the police characters were extremely one-dimensional. They're hardly in the season at all. There's multiple times where you think the police are going to come into play and be involved in the story, and they're not at all. But instead, they show throughout the course of the season that the freaks, the way that they're handling things, it's very much ineffective compared to the police, but they're doing a lot of the same shitty things that the police would have done. People took bribes, just like police take bribes. People killed people and then covered up the murders to make them look like accidents. That's something that police do. They stole things and framed people. That's something police do. They did all the same things that police do. And so really the whole season was just a humanity study of sorts, and showing you that freaks are people too. Like that's the story. That's the deeper thing. And it's bad because it's like, okay, everyone who watched the season, I guarantee, everyone already knew that. We didn't need to be told that. The story didn't need to be about that. The story wasn't about that until the 5th episode, by the way. The first 4 episodes, you didn't really get that, because the first 4, they were like, yeah, they're obviously a lot like people. People are pieces of shit, though. They treat the freaks terribly. We already knew all that stuff, and then on episode 5 and onwards, though, they treat you like you don't know that, and like, oh, you need to be told that freaks are people too. And it's like, yeah, we know. And we know they're not, freaks. But it's just like, why? Like, was this really worth... Like, I don't understand. It was very upsetting and sort of like depressing, disappointing to think that the first 4 episodes were so good, and after that, it's just like the way that the show just teeter-tottered, back and forth and back and forth. And then you had Ethel, where in episode 3, it felt like the perfect send-off for Ethel, where she had that really touching scene with the doctor, where she's talking about, if there was a doctor like you my whole life, maybe I wouldn't have become an alcoholic and gotten fibrosis of the liver. And then there's this beautiful scene where she's sitting by a lake with Del, and she's telling Del to take care of Jimmy and make sure that, he's the leader that he's supposed to be. He's the hero that he's supposed to be. It's a very beautiful scene. And then Edward Mordrake comes onto the scene because Elsa is so fucking retarded that she chose to perform on Halloween. And he goes into Ethel's trailer, and he's talking to Ethel, and it just felt like the perfect poetic send-off for her character. But it made it even more epic when it was like, no, she's not the one. And then he left. And it was like, oh wow, that was completely unexpected. That was very unpredictable, in my opinion. But then later on, Ethel has this whole storyline where she doesn't trust Elsa anymore, and because Ma Petite died, she is going to kill Elsa and then kill herself. And I was really like, you know what? I was on Elsa's side for a lot of the season, and this was one of the key moments where I was on her side. You know, she, as people have pointed out, she got demonized on the show for killing Ethel. And she got, like, really, like, turned into a villain, almost. You know, like, close-up shots of the devil bag, which I didn't even realize it was a devil bag until episode 12, which was funny. So, they had this really epic moment where, you know, Ethel thought that she's going to kill Elsa, and she shoots her in the leg. And it's like, oh shit, she's got a wooden leg. And that was incredible. That was awesome. And then she's like, let's just have one more drink. And she goes over, and she fucking tosses that knife into Ethel's face. That was fucking awesome. I was like, yeah, Elsa, yeah. I was cheering. Like, I was so happy that, you know, the times where Elsa, where you thought that she was going to get killed, where you thought that she was going to get taken out, and she's like, no, fuck you, and she just fucking gets them back or whatever, and, you know, that was a really epic moment for her character, and it was so funny, too, the way that, like, Ethel really thought like, it was really weird, like, the way that she was like, I don't trust you anymore, I don't have any faith in you anymore, but I'm going to let you go over there and get us a drink. That just showed how much of an alcoholic she was, because she just wanted the alcohol. So, anyways, I'm trying to... So, really, my main point, though, is that the season started off really good. Those first 4 episodes, fantastic. And after that, it was like, I really wasn't a fan of the rest of the season in comparison. So the way that I graded the rest of the season, I graded all the episodes on a curve just to be nice, you know, because I really did like moments in the rest of the season. Like, probably one of my favorite moments. Oh, we haven't even talked about a standalone episode yet, which we'll talk about. But one of my favorite moments was how the twins, how they told Elsa that she was going to be targeted and killed by the other shitty-ass freaks. And what really pissed me off about the freaks, by the way, is how you had these three, what do you call them? Bandwagoners. You know, you had Desiree, you had Penny, and you had Ima Wiggles. Was that her name? You know, you had the 3 of them. They had just come on to the freak show for like the past couple of weeks. And they're like leading the charge to kill Elsa because of someone who they only knew for a couple of weeks. It didn't really make any sense, and it felt like they should have gone against the other freaks as well, because because the twins, you know, they were there for only a short time, and they also had the same reaction where they're like, no, this is wrong, Elsa should not be killed, we're going to tell Elsa and save her. And it was really, really beautiful the way that, you know, for all those episodes, it was basically about Elsa wanting to kill the twins. And after all those failed attempts, the twins come and they're the ones who save Elsa. It was just so, like, ironic and so cool. The fact that, like, that really redeemed their characters. I really wasn't a fan of the Crybaby twins because they didn't really have a whole lot to do for the most part, except for, like, I don't know, like, romance crap. But when they saved Elsa and they told her to go, I was like, wow, these are some cool. I like these girls, and they wanted to be with Jimmy. I was really mad when he rejected them, because they had to have the two pretty leads be together, and of course that didn't work out. Well, I was upset about that too. I will say, Emma Roberts, she did a good job. I liked her a lot. I know I didn't feel like she gave the best performance, but I was really happy that she tried to do something other than being a mean girl. I didn't really think that she would voluntarily do that. A lot of these actors, they just kind of stay in one character and they never even deviate from that character. And so it was really surprising and nice to see her play this character who was manipulated and forced into doing these evil things by Stanley. And I really liked her character a lot. Like, she was a good love interest, and I was really upset when she got killed, because I felt like it was another instance where the people who make this show, they have this belief that evil people cannot be redeemed ever. If you ever do something wrong, if you're ever a bad person, you can never be redeemed for that one mistake. And it feels like that was what it was like for her character, because then all the other freaks, they're like, whatever, she had it coming. It was really irritating. And I'm not talking about characters specifically. That'll be a whole different video where I go through each character by character. But that's something to say, so good job to Emma Roberts. Lastly, I think, before I get to the rating and everything, even though I wasn't a fan of the second half of the season, I really loved Stanley's performance. I think that the actor who plays Stanley, he's in like every season of the show, and I think that he's the most underrated actor of the whole series. Because he's never really done a bad job in the role that he's given, except for whatever the fuck that town committee person in season 10, that character was trash, but he was just there for a joke. He wasn't really a full-on character. But even though Stanley was pure evil, and I really hated Stanley, this person who came to the freak show so that he could kill freaks and then sell their body parts to a museum. Wow, was that guy evil. But his acting was so good. I loved watching him. I think he gave the best performance. Second best. Okay, God, I don't know. Like, the villains were really good this season. They were really likable because of their acting. They were just so good at acting that it kind of made me forget about the real evil things they're doing on screen for a lot of the time. So I really have to appreciate his character, and even though I wasn't really a fan of his story a lot, because another thing I didn't mention is the fact that they had this whole subplot where he has I guess it's like a 20-inch dick, and the reason why they did that was, of course, to show that he's actually a freak too. He's physically a freak as well. And, a lot of the times people fetishize people with big dicks, but then a lot of the other times, people still see it as he's a freak. He's a fucking freak. And it's weird because they never even bring that up in when all the freaks team up to kill him, when they all gang up on him and they do what they do to him. we never even hear, like, their reaction to that, the fact that, like, he's a freak as well. Because what I was expecting was for him to just have that looked at for the rest of the show. Like, you know, have him be an exhibit where people just view his genitalia and have some sort of, like, a torture element to that as well, or something. You know, but they didn't do anything with that. Instead of that, they literally just turned him into Meep. They turned him into a second Meep, and they cut out his tongue. And it was also weird because we never see what happens to Stanley. We never see, like, does he die? Does he live? There's a couple of plot holes in this season that were kind of distracting. Like, that was one. That was a huge one, which reminded me of in season 3 when we never found out what happened to the baby that he took as when he was playing a butler. And then another plot hole. Wait. Sorry, there's so many things I'm trying to remember. It literally just slipped my mind. Oh, okay. One of the weirdest plots of the season was how Jimmy was treated like he was Simba and the Lion King, kinda. I mean, he was like Simba in the Lion King meets Magneto from X-Men. Like, his character was a lot like Magneto, where he's like, his whole arc is about, freaks have nothing to be ashamed of, and he's basically like pro-freaks, he's the leader of the freaks. They have this whole arc, though, where it's like a heroic redemption arc, where he loses his hands because of Stanley. That was a really dark and epic sequence. And then he gets new ones. And they treated it like Daredevil, where Daredevil's getting a new suit, a new gear, and it led to nothing. It was the most anticlimactic, deflating thing ever. Like, and I gotta say, like, I don't blame him, because he lost both his parents. He lost Emma Roberts, who's very, very attractive, and he lost everything, and then he's supposed to come and be like this heroic figure, this leader, and he doesn't even get to do that because everyone's dead. All the freaks basically are dead, and so he's not allowed to come back and do that, and so it felt like a huge waste of time. It felt like, why did we have to spend this whole season building up him being a hero, building up Dandy as his arch nemesis? Why even do that if it just built to nothing? It felt really strange, and it felt like it also, you could look at it like where. Actually, never mind. No, you couldn't. I take that back. So the last thing that I'll talk about before I rate it is the Orphans episode. This is probably the greatest tie-in I've ever seen. They just had this whole after the whole season, you're waiting for Pepper. Pepper doesn't do jack shit. She's just in the background, lurking in the background. And it's like, what is going to happen with Pepper? She was such a fantastic character in Asylum. And then all of a sudden, you have this whole episode dedicated to her. And she gives an Emmy-worthy performance as this character. It was so heartbreaking. It was so sad. It was so perfect. It was probably one of the greatest TV episodes I've ever seen. It felt like, and I know people are going to freak out and they're going to cringe. This episode was the Ozymandias of American Horror Story. I never thought that I would say that, but it is the Ozymandias of American Horror Story. It was so perfect. It was it was so epic. It was so fucking awesome. I loved this episode. It was perfection. It was an A plus plus plus. It's definitely the best episode that the series has ever done. It was true horror. It was oh yeah. Like I got the same feeling just watching this episode that I got eating that fucking vanilla cupcake. You know the cupcake I'm talking about, not the pink cupcake, the vanilla cupcake. And now let's get to the rating. Now this is going to weird you guys out. For the first 4 episodes, I give it German chocolate cake. And of course, because Elsa's German. And I really love the character of Elsa. You know, I felt like the show didn't give her her due, though. I felt like the way that her character went, it was kind of awkward the way that, I don't know, it felt personal. It didn't feel like, I don't know, it was weird. You know, I had a weird feeling from it. But the first 4 episodes, German chocolate cake, which, you know, you have the chocolate cake, you have that frosting with the coconut, and there's a little cherry on top. And I get these pieces from this market that's in town. I think it's like 20 minutes away. I get a piece from there once in a while of German chocolate cake. And it is just fantastic. It's delicious. It's colorful. It's really good. Just like Jessica Lange. And so then the rest of the show, you know, let me take a drink. On my other channel, I told you guys about this show that I did, which I don't know if I'll continue doing it. I don't know. I did this show where I went on this dating app called Badoo, and I trolled people on their video live streams. Because they had this whole section where instead of just swiping people like Tinder, like all these other shitty ass dating apps, you can go into people's like live videos and talk to them live, and it kind of feels a lot better. But it's really awkward because you have all these other people like watching you, like other guys, and they're like trying to compete for her attention sometimes. And it started off really good where I thought, you know what, like there might be somebody on this app who's like really worth it. You know, somebody. But then it's oh God, like the experiences that I had on this app within like a week's time were just so weird and awkward. Like, it was so gross. It was so like it. But that's what happens every time I get onto a new dating app, a new website. It's always the same fucking experience. You start off, you're really excited, you're really happy about being there because there's hope, and then as Ethel said on the show, if you have hope, all your hopes get crushed and all your dreams get crushed too, you little shithead lobster boy. That's what happened to me on this app, was that the same thing on this season is that I just felt the deflating, anticlimactic feeling, just like air going out of a balloon. Just this horrible, like, just feeling. You know, there was this one live stream where there was this cringeworthy guy, and she would kind of like make jabs and jokes and it's stuff that I would say, and then it was I didn't care, but this guy, he was like egging her on, like he was trying to like it was really creepy and really queer, just really like, ew, why do people act like this? Like he was almost acting like he was already like a couple with her. It was just so cringeworthy. Like the levels of cringe that I experienced on this app are unparalleled. Okay? It is so bad to the point of where I could literally rate all the characters in terms of actual people who I saw on the app. Like there was this one woman, she kept on showing her boobs for some reason. You guys didn't get to see this, but she talked about how she ate a can. She talked about how she ate a candy can out of her girlfriend's pussy and all this weird shit, and she was dressing up so that she was putting on this lingerie, and she was like Desiree from this season of American Horror Story. Then there was this really nice woman who was kind of like middle-aged, and she favorited me, which really like made me kind of excited. And she was blonde, and she was a lot like Elsa Mars. And then I think her account got suspended because she showed herself smoking hookah on stream, unfortunately. So that was really sad. I was like, oh no. And I don't know if I'll be able to find her. And then, of course, there was this one woman, and she did this weird thing where she was like asking me, where is the city that I live? And then she just randomly kicked me out of her stream, and I swear to God, I think it was an accident, and I think that she meant to favorite me, because I literally just came onto her stream. And I had been coming onto her stream like a couple of times, just saying hi and saying a couple of things and then leaving. And I came on, and as soon as I came on, she says, oh, hey, ooh. And she clicked on my profile, and she said, where is that place? And then I just got kicked out, and it was just the most random ass thing ever. I was so shocked. I was so weirded out. It was weird. So that was another she was kind of like the tall woman, Amazon Eve, which, by the way, Amazon Eve, she had some pretty cool moments, honestly, but she was another character who didn't really have a lot to do, but she did have that one cool scene where she fought Dell, and she thought that he was trying to rape her and everything. And he was trying to kill her, which was way worse. And so that was pretty funny. In fact, that's another thing. Like, okay, I won't get into that, but they never really had a confrontation about that. Honestly, like, that would have been something interesting to talk about. The fact that, that was another thing where, because they weren't police, they weren't able to decipher the fact that Dell was actually trying to kill her. He was not trying to rape her, and it was because they should not be dealing with this stuff by themselves. The police should be helping them. And then, of course, on the dating app, I'm trying to think of other people. Okay, I found one. Okay, there was this one girl, and I swear to God, she was weird. She was very weird, but I don't know. She's kind of pretty, I guess. She's this hot redhead from Minnesota, and she was really sad. Like, she came on to stream, and I'm not gonna say specifics, but she was talking about, she was really disappointed that I came on to stream and then would just leave. And it was like she was sad that I would leave the stream. And it's like, honestly, like, I don't like wasting my time on these apps with these people who just, they waste all your time completely. And so that's why I kind of like to, drift off and not really be there for long. And, so I kind of had some excitement over her, but then over the course of the stream, I don't know. Like, she kept on complaining that nobody wanted to get to know her and that nobody wanted to talk to her. And then she would complain and she would make all these, like, weird remarks. And it reminded me so much of Kim from Better Call Saul. I swear to God, it was bizarre. She just kept on complaining. And every time, like, I don't know, like, it just, I don't know, like, I got a really negative feeling from her. And she was definitely a lot like Jimmy, the lobster boy. The way that there was all this excitement over his character becoming a leader, becoming a hero of some kind. And then, as it turned out, he was the biggest fucking disappointment. I mean, he became a drunk. He did this, he did that. He couldn't do his little side gig with the women anymore, the housewives. And then there was this whole back and forth between him and Dandy that went nowhere. And then at the end, he's just a husband who's at home with the twins. Like, that's it. That's all there is to his character by the end of the show. Just really, really weird. So, anyways, this review's kind of sad. Like, it's disappointing because I was so happy with the first 4 episodes. But now I'm just looking back and it's just kind of sad. And it's the same thing with, like, this dating app where it's just, it's so deflating. You go on these places, you think that you can meet someone interesting and nice, and then nothing happens, and it's just one giant disappointment. And that's what I felt like with the season. But even though I still really love the season, I still say it's the best one, simply because all the seasons, to be fair, end in disappointment. All of them follow the same path. It's just this one, I don't know. It's sad. It's very sad. It turned itself into an American drama story. And anyways, please like this video, comment, tell me what you thought of this review. I will definitely be doing a video talking about the characters of the season. And then please subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more American Horror Story reviews. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.